Hello everyone, my name is Juan David and I'm part of Group 34, the developers of the app Rumora. During this video, we will reflect on the ethical implications of our work. This time, the sprint was more focused on strengthening their app and making important technical decisions that relate to reliability, data handling, and performance. This time, we made sure to reflect on how it impacts users, the society, and the environment. At the end, we will comment the most important learnings from this sprint. One important ethical reflection for me was that we need to design for conditions that are not ideal, because we can't expect the users to have unlimited resources, permanent connectivity, and unexpected errors. If we expected a perfect scenario, we would be unrealistic and unfair to the users. So we have the responsibility to think about frustration, data loss, and user trust when things don't work as we expected. And also I understood that ethical design is to accept the limitations, but to build the best app possible for the final users. Now, Esteban will continue with another reflection.
For me, an important ethical aspect of this sprint was related to how data is handled on the user's device. Even when data is stored locally, it still represents personal information and user behavior. We reflected on how storing data is not only a technical choice, but an ethical one. Keeping unnecessary data can increase risks, while poor handling can affect privacy and trust. This sprint made me more aware that the ethical responsibility includes being intentional about what data is kept, why it is kept, and for how long. Respecting users also means minimizing exposure and not treating data as something neutral or harmless. Now I will pass it to Ali.
During this sprint, we also reflected on the environmental impact of mobile applications, even though we haven't implemented it directly. Software may seem invisible, but inefficient designs can increase energy consumption, data usage, and server load. We discussed how decisions related to performance, background processes, and data requests can directly affect battery usage and network consumption. Thus, we implemented features related to GPS. Even small inefficiencies, when scaled to many users, can have a real environmental cost. The reflection helped us to understand the environmental responsibility should be considered early, even if cannot always be addressed immediately. Being aware of this impact is the first step towards a more sustainable development in future sprints. And now Andy will share his reflection.
So during the sprint, I reflected on the ethical implications of defining and answering business questions. These questions influence the data that we prioritize and how we interpret user behavior. So we discussed how focusing only on metrics can reduce users to numbers and ignore the real context and needs. Ethical reflection, this kind of required us to think about whether certain questions that we're asking can introduce bias or lead to unfair conclusions about these users. So the sprint just showed me that data-driven decisions aren't necessarily neutral. Um, they require a lot of responsibility, transparency, and just overall awareness of how they can influence future decisions about the product and its users.
For me, the main ethical reflection was about performance and teamwork. Performance issues can indirectly exclude users with older devices or limited resources, which raises concerns about fairness and accessibility. At the same time, working on complex technical aspects requires strong collaboration and mutual support within the team. Ethical teamwork means communicating clearly, sharing knowledge, and respecting each other's limits under time pressure. This sprint reminded me that ethics are not only about what we build, but also about how we build it together. A respectful and supportive team environment is essential for responsible development. To conclude, this sprint helped us understand that technical decisions are deeply connected to ethical responsibility. Even when focusing on infrastructure and performance, our choices affect users, society, and the environment. Although not all ethical concerns can be solved in one sprint, reflecting on them helps guide better decisions in the future. In the next sprint, we want to continue improving our application while remaining conscious of its broader impact. Thank you for watching. See you next sprint.